On my last trip to Argentina, I tied on this fly and had 3 fish between 10 and 15 pounds follow it right to my feet. Curious? Hello everyone, I'm Phil Rowley and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you've been here before, thanks for dropping by once again. If this is your first time visiting my channel, I provide fly tying and fly fishing video content that I hope makes your next day on the water just that little bit more successful. Today I'm going to show you how to tie the Argentine Apps. This is a fly I took down with me on a hunch on my last trip down to Argentina. They like red flies down there, so I thought, why not? On day 3, I'll give this a try. And I was pleasantly surprised with its performance. It's a variation of the Apps worm, which you can find on my channel. Check the description below. But I've added a bead head on it, a tungsten head turner bead, tied on a jig hook that helped me get down in the wind-induced currents that are common when you're fishing Jurassic Lake. So join me at my bench. Let me show you how I tie it. So let's tie the Argentine Apps worm. This is my variation of the original Apps worm. I took these down to Argentina with me on a bit of a lark, see if they worked, and believe me, they did. So into the jaws of the vise, I've got a Daiichi 4647. This is a 60-degree heavy jig hook. You need heavy jigs for Argentina, because you're fishing 15-pound tippet to 12 to 15-pound rainbows. So you need that stoutness. And number 10, number 12 is probably all you need. You could also use the 4640, which is the bronze finish. And then onto the hook, I've slid a 1/8 fluorescent orange tungsten head turner bead. So we're going to get the thread started with a minimum of wraps. Just don't want to have too much bulk right here behind the hook eye. I'm going to come in and trim this off, and hopefully it doesn't fall off. And then I'm going to take a section of, for the legs on this fly, legs, antenna, tails, whatever you want to call it, we're using some Sexi floss in red medium. Where I stay at Stanchi Laguna Verde in Patagonia, the fish of Lago Strobel love red. So that's why we use this fly. So I'm going to take a length of this stretch floss and I'm going to pull it up, making sure I have a good section to tie in with, because we're going to trim these to length, so you can make these a little longer than necessary. And then I'm just going to pull on them to reduce bulk, and this step's probably easier for a left-handed tire, is just get those tied in place like so, just so they're sticking out the front. That's all we're aiming for here. But I'm trying to reduce bulk because I'm going to come in with my whip finisher and just a couple turn, 2 to 3 turn whip finish, just to tie these off and not get them stuck in the whip finish knot. Might do one more just for luck, like so. And just this one happened to jump into, that happens. Just pull it out. Make sure that's on there nice and tight. Trim them off. That's good, just like that. Just be sticking out. Pull up on them slightly. And now I'm going to take my head turner bead, and notice I've got, this is the concave side of the bead. I want that. I'm just going to try and push this over the much as I can and just get that in place, just like that. It's not going to fit tight because of the legs sticking out, but we want them flailing away out in front. And now we're going to change threads from that red to Glo Brite number 3. It's a nice red, fluorescent red coloration. And we're just going to get my bobbin threaded with this Glo Brite and attach that Glo Brite right behind that head turner bead. Get a good base of thread started. Come in with my scissors, trim, and get that base down along the shank. About halfway between the point and the crushed down barb. Bring that thread back in open turns. And then I'm going to take another section of our Sexi floss. Again, making sure you have lots to play with. Lay it on the barrel of the bobbin so there's equal amounts of material on both sides. Going to pull that down and secure it on top of the shank. Once I've got it tied in, I'm really going to pull on it. Just like so, just to reduce the bulk. Come down. And I'm going to wind these down, just like the original apps worm, down into the bend ever so slightly, just so that they form like so. Just pull on them a bit. Make sure they're splayed apart a little bit, like a little forked tail. And then we're going to come back up, close touching turns. And just like any other thread, we can spin this floss counterclockwise. And just give a nice base of thread, nice smooth red body all the way up to the rear of the bead. Start working our way back to the midpoint. So we're going to go back all the way down. So 2 to 3 layers. Don't want to overdo it, but make sure you're covering up any of the spaces. Give yourself a nice deep red, fluorescent red body. Every once in a while stop. Spin that bobbin counterclockwise. Get to that midpoint. We're going to stop. And we're going to take another section of stretch floss and secure a pair of legs on the far side and a pair of legs on the near side. So I'm just going to reel that bobbin in a little bit, place it around the barrel of the bobbin so there's equal amounts of floss on either side. Grab it and just walk that, slide that down, and use that to position that pair of legs on the far side of the hook. So I'm going to put a couple of wraps in, come in, position them where I want them. I want them down the side. I can put a couple of wraps on either side a little bit, just to help splay them out. And then back to the midpoint. And we're going to repeat that process, securing in another pair of legs on the near side of the hook. So again, doubled around the thread. Doubled around the barrel of the bobbin, slide that off onto the thread, to the midpoint, couple of wraps, make sure they're positioned on the sides, like so. Pull that back a little bit, and then carry on forward. We'll spin that bobbin counterclockwise, and close touching turns all the way up. And these legs shouldn't really interfere because they're tied in at different spots along the shank, so they're just going to stay out of the way. And then we're just going to bring this up right to the rear of this bead. Build this up. Come in with our whip finisher. Carefully navigate around all these. Now the beads, obviously the legs want to get in the way because everybody loves a whip finisher. And we'll just pull these around. And then we'll just make sure that all these legs are out of the way before we pull everything tight. Like so. And that's good. Trim that off. And now we're going to trim these legs and then we'll give them a coating. So you want to build a template. So you start with a cocktail stick, a fondue stick. This is just a wooden toothpick. And it's been trimmed to about 1.5 inches in length. So I'm going to take one of the legs, like this one here, just pick any one. And I'm going to come in, put that toothpick right on the hook shank, and just not pulling on it with any tension, just align them up. And I'm going to come in and trim that one leg even. So that leg is 1.5 inches long. And then you can come in with the rest of your legs, and you can do this all at once, or in this case, I'll do sort of the mid pair and the back section all together because they're all tied in more or less the same way. And I'm just going to gather them up like a hairdresser would pull hair to length. Again, don't stretch on them. So I'm just going to, let me get my fingers out of the way so you can see. But that's the one that was trimmed, this one right here. So I'm just going to come in and carefully trim these legs to the same length, like so. And then the front pair, I can just come in and gather them together, and they're more or less at the same, back a little bit, and trim them. So that's your legs all trimmed. And now we want to coat the body. So how we're going to do this is use a little brushable super glue, and just be careful with this because the fumes, the super glue works because it kind of preserves the thread color, but you just got to be careful that you don't accidentally curl your legs when the super glue cures a little bit. So we're just going to put that, touch that onto the body, rotate that over a little bit on the, and just work it down, being very careful with it. And that's all you need. Just coat those up, let that kick, and then to help add a little bit of longevity to your fly, you can also take the super glue and touch each of the tips of your floss, and that'll stop them from fraying. So just a little touch, little touch, little touch, little touch, all the way around to all 8 sets of legs. Got the other one hanging down the back side of the vise here. And that's your finished Argentine Apps. And I tied it this way as opposed to the regular way with no bead, simply because with the wind-induced current that you get down there, you need a fly that's going to sink quickly and get down through that current and allow it to sink. And then you're just going to fish this. We were typically fishing it on 12 to 14 feet a leader, cast it out, let it sink anywhere from 20 to 30 seconds, and then strip it back 2 to 4 inch strips with a pause, 2 to 4 inch strips and a pause, a couple of strips and then a pause, a couple of strips and a pause, and hang on because the fish clocked it. The first time I threw this in the lake, 3 huge rainbows followed it in right to my feet before seeing me and spooking off. Throw it back out there and immediately hooked one of them. So a great, if you're going down to Argentina to fish Jurassic Lake, Lago Strobel, if you want to join me at Estancia Laguna Verde, just follow the description, in the links in the description below. And this is one of the flies you'll want to have in your fly box if you ever go to fish Lago Strobel.